the Islamic Institution for Education and Teaching, Al Mahdi Schools, Department of English. Peace be upon you all, dear students. Today we are going to venture into a new selection, a short story written by W. W. Jacobs, titled The Monkey's Paw. It is in your literature handbook, pages 85 up till 99, prepared by the teachers Sanaa Hodroj and Rola Fadllalh. Our objectives will be to identify the terms mystery and superstitious beliefs, to answer direct and analytical questions, to identify the plot of the story, and to depict some literary elements as suspense and mood. Please prepare the following: your book, your comprehension copybook, and a pen. Dear students, in the coming slide, we are going to watch a short scene from the film The Monkey's Paw. Watch it carefully, live the moment, figure out anything that is suspenseful about it. It is important to note that this short story can be labeled under the theme of mysteries and superstitions. So, what do you know about this theme? Well, as we have learned in grade 9, mysteries are some occurrences that are difficult or even impossible to understand or explain. Examples on mysteries could be the construction of the Egyptian pyramids, the Bermuda Triangle, Stonehenge, Bigfoot, and many others. However, superstitious beliefs are those ideas that have controlled the people's minds long ago. They are not based on any logical thinking, but on old ideas of magic. Examples on superstitious beliefs could be the black cat and its relation to bad luck, the itchy hand and its connection to bringing money or receiving money, and garlic and its effect in spreading away evil spirits. First of all, let us recall the basic elements of the plot. This is the plot pyramid as we know, and these are the 5 constituting elements. The exposition is the beginning part where the author mentions the characters, the setting, time and place, and the basic situation and main conflict. The rising actions are the chain of events that take place as the main character struggles to achieve his or her goal. As this main character is struggling and the actions are developing more and more and more, the action reaches its climax. So, here in the climax part, the character can bear no more. He reaches the highest emotional intensity, and the actions or the problem need to be solved. Then, those actions start to get loose and loose, and we call them the falling actions till we reach the resolution, which is titled also as the end. Now, read pages 85 and 86 in your book in order to identify some of the plot elements as the exposition. Pause the video for a short time, read well, write down the answers to these questions, and once you finish, play the video again and compare your answers with the one posted here. Question 1. Who are the characters? The characters are Mr. and Mrs. White, their son Herbert, and Sergeant Major Morris. What is the setting? It is on a cold and wet night in the White's Laburnum Villa. What is the basic or initial event? The Whites are waiting for the sergeant's arrival in their cozy villa during a winter's night. I'm sure your answers were almost the same. Now together let us examine how we could figure out the setting and the characters and the initial event. The blue highlighted words indicate the setting. Night was cold and wet, and in the small parlor of Laburnum Villa. Who are the characters? Father and son. Mr. White and his son. What were they doing? They were playing chess. Notice that through these paragraphs, we come to know that the father and the son here are playing chess. And the father maybe has committed a certain mistake in the chess game, and wanting to drive the attention of his son away from the mistake, he starts complaining about the wind, about the weather, about the faraway location in their house, and finally he mentions that the guest may not make it and arrive as expected. In paragraphs 9, 10, and 11, we learn that the expected guest has arrived. There he is, said Herbert White, and heavy footsteps came toward the door. The old man, Mr. White, welcomes his guest hospitably, and he introduces him to the family as Sergeant Major Morris. Now continue reading paragraphs 12 till 14. Then play the video in order to notice the highlighted phrases. Having read the previous paragraphs, we notice that as Major Morris tells about his experience in India, the old man, Mr. White, feels eager and excited about going to India himself. But the Major tells him, better where you are, and he sighs softly. Here we need to ask ourselves, why doesn't Major Morris welcome the idea of Mr. White visiting India? Mr. White says, I should like to see those old temples and fakirs and the jugglers. What was that you started telling me the other day about a monkey's paw or something, Morris? Morris, the major, abruptly says, nothing, leastways nothing worth hearing. But the lady, Mrs. White, curiously says, monkey's paw. Here we notice that the major feels himself obliged to speak up. He says, well, it's just a bit of what you might call magic, perhaps. Having read this part of the story, what basic element of literature can you depict in the previous paragraphs? Think about it. We have an expected guest, not willing to speak about the story of the monkey's paw, acting strangely, lonely home, on a cold and wet night. What could it be? Think about it. Yes, it is suspense. That's true. The following paragraph starts off the rising actions in the story. As the surgeon finds himself obliged to speak up about the monkey's paw, he begins, well, it had a spell put on it by an old fakir, a very holy man. He wanted to show that fate ruled people's lives and that those who interfered with it did so to their sorrow. He put a spell on it so that three separate men could each have three wishes from it. Notice that the actions are rising in here. Okay? As the family members listen to the story of the monkey's paw, they ask about the first man who has used it. And the surgeon says, the first man had his three wishes, yes. I don't know what the first two were, but the third was for death. That's how I got the paw. Here the actions are rising. And as he speaks out these words, his tones were so grave that a hush fell upon the group. Now, please think of the kind of mood that the above sentence reveals. Think about it carefully. I know you can figure it out. Yes, it is a mood of fear. Now answer the following questions in your comprehension copybooks. 1. After you have read paragraphs 34 to 37, how does Morris seem to you concerning the usage of the monkey's paw? 2. In paragraphs 38 and 39, what did Morris do with the paw and why? Now, check your answers. 1. Morris seems hesitant about using it. Maybe he has been harmed. 2. He wants to get rid of it, maybe to end its bad effects. Again, read these paragraphs, 41 up till 68, and try to discover whether the family is going to use that power or not. Pause the video for more benefit, please. When you finish the reading, play it again. As Mr. White insists on keeping the paw for himself, he asks the sergeant about the way to use it. Here, Morris instructs him but warns him of the consequences, saying, hold it up in your right hand and wish aloud. But I warn you of the consequences. The lady, Mrs. White, comments upon the paw ironically and says, sounds like the Arabian Nights. Don't you think you might wish for 4 pairs of hands for me? She seems mocking about it. As the sergeant leaves, Herbert insists upon his father to make a wish. Why, we're going to be rich and famous and happy. Wish to be an emperor, father, to begin with. Then you can't be henpecked. We notice that Herbert is still mocking at the pause effect. Obeying his family's demand, the father makes his first wish. I wish for 200 pounds. Still, the actions are rising. The father has made his first wish. Herbert comments, well, I don't see the money, and I bet I never shall. It seems that he still doesn't believe in the effect of the monkey's paw. As father and mother leave to bed, Herbert speaks up again. I expect you'll find the cash tied up in a big bag in the middle of your bed. He makes some humorous remarks, which means that he doesn't believe in the whole matter. What will happen later? Let us find out by reading these paragraphs, 69 up till 76. Pause the video, read well, then play it again. We learn that Herbert goes to work and his mother follows him to the door. At that moment, she receives a bill from the tailor and she comments, well, Herbert will have some more of his funny remarks, I expect, when he comes home. And we need to ask, will Herbert come back home? As father and mother argue about the monkey's paw, the father insists that it moved in his hand. I say it did. There was no thought about it. I had just. Then he cuts short to ask, "What's the matter?" "Now it is your turn. Whom do you expect has arrived? What new action is going to take place?" What is going on in paragraph 71? Explain. The mother expects to receive something fabulous. If she doesn't, that will create a situational irony, right? What about paragraph 72? The author adds to the suspense of the situation. He makes us eager to know what is going to happen. Read these paragraphs, we notice that the story has not reached its climax so far. This means we need to focus on the second part, but it is important to jot down the events that make up the rising actions in order to complete our plot pyramid. The rising actions are: Sergeant Major Morris shows the family a monkey's paw that can grant a person three wishes. Mr. White insists on taking the monkey's paw. Morris warns him of the terrible consequences. The father makes his first wish, £200. A stranger arrives at the White's house. We need to ask ourselves about this new person and the purpose behind his sudden appearance. Of course, we'll come to know when we continue the reading later. The Islamic Institution, Al Mahdi Schools production, April 2020. Thanks for watching. Be ready for the second part next week.